SMS number is 22162. Please begin your text message with the words YM254. If you prefer to get in touch with us through our social media platforms, they are YM254 TV on Instagram and Facebook, not to mention Y254 channel on Twitter. Shiko Kaitani is my name, and of course on set with me are my fantastic co-host Barry Moses, not to mention Hilda Wadibi. Now, even as we talk about entrepreneurship and career, today we are going to take a quick look at the agriculture sector and engage you on your thoughts on it. Is it really a viable business for young people, or is it seen as a prehistoric idea simply meant for the old? Well, we do want to get your opinions on that, so go ahead and text us today. But that being said, Barry Moses and Hilda, what are your thoughts, you guys, on farming? Of course, this has been a never-ending discussion. I don't know if the government feels like, okay, you know what, let's just give up. Because
all right, there's a joke. I'll start with the jokes first.
Yes.
And there's a tweet I saw on Twitter talking about Kenyans. Ati Mungu asamehe Kenya, mvua ikinyesha, instead of thinking about farming, they're thinking about other things.
yes,
that I won't mention.
baby making session.
And these babies, what are they going to eat in future?
Exactly.
Anyway.
And then do you know, Hilda, you know about the responses that come after you tweet something you think is really smart.
Yeah.
All right, that person is like, okay, hatuna mashamba, so acha tulima.
But it's true. Actually, that's the biggest excuse. People don't have like land to farm in anymore. I think the urbanization is a problem.
So let's farm each other.
Yeah,
I think I'm still in shock from what Barry has just said.
No, Barry is still thinking about the amphibian we discussed in the morning. So
Shamba, so too, guy.
Anyway,
but I think it's an urbanization problem. Like the towns have started to encroach the rural areas where farming was done. So now,
really, Hilda?
yeah, it's true. If you look at Kenya right now, it's half a desert.
It's half a desert because we are cutting trees, not because we are building things.
No, it is because we are building things and cutting the trees. That's why they're cutting the trees, because they are building things.
I think though, it's just that they haven't made the sector look that appealing to young people.
That's
Then
true.
there's that whole rural to urban migration happening. And so, I mean, young people feel like, okay, what's the point of staying in Shags? Like, if you had a choice between choosing staying in Kitale or Nairobi, you'd rather come to Nairobi as a young person because you feel like, okay, you know what, I want a white collar job. I want
opportunities are in Nairobi.
you know.
Yes, and like a very huge percentage of the GDP is in Nairobi. So there's a lot of money circulating in Nairobi. So maybe if we could direct the money to the counties and everything else, maybe there would be some money off agriculture and it would encourage. But I also think, are there enough courses in campus?
Exactly, that was exactly what I was going to say. I was going to be like, first of all, this thing, it has to be in our curriculum from the word go. I don't even know how to farm myself, you know, like even if you have to give me a shamba.
Just feel how soft they
farmers, stop discriminating the rest of us. You know, Shiko is a farmer, so she can laugh at us here.
I've been a farmer too.
Oh, you can farm.
Yes.
Wow, they're good for
but
you.
mine is animal farming.
But you see now, when you go to high school, agriculture is an optional subject. It's not mandatory.
And even in just some schools, because even for me in high school, it wasn't even there.
I remember the class that was taking agriculture in my school was the uncoolest class. They were looked down upon. Which is not supposed to be the case, by the way, because these people feed the nation. And when you look at countries like the States, some of the richest people are farmers.
Absolutely.
Actually, even here in Kenya, some of the richest people are farmers.
But large-scale farmers,
Yes.
Okay. So, so it's a viable thing. I feel like it's something like really. Imagine putting a small seed into the ground, and then it grows into something big that you can sell. It's something really viable.
But they have to make it cool from school.
They have to make it cool from exactly. I like that point. And by the way, Barry, you're a tech guy. Look at the way the West is using technology to actually improve farming. These days, people are, producing tons and tons from something that's as small as this, set.
A very small area, and gone are the days when we used to say, we can't do this in Kenya because not so many people have big chunks of land. We need to do large scale farming, tractors. Gone are the days because you can use a very small chunk of land to produce a lot, especially the daily foods.
But you see now the ones who are doing that are more subsistent farmers than cash crop farmers. You understand? Like most of them, they eat from hand to mouth, whatever they grow in their shambas. So it becomes difficult for the guys with small shambas to produce a lot.
But with technology, Hilda, a very small chunk of land can produce a lot of food with technology. You can greenhouse that place. You can use I've seen even the simplest form of growing skuma in sacks.
In sacks, that's true. Pallet crates.
And it produces a lot of food. So it's not about the size of the land nowadays. It's about how you use the land.
And being creative to increase productivity. Okay. All right.
But the tagline, we should not forget the tagline. Make it cool from school.
Make it cool from school. I like that. And I didn't even know she just came up with a new tagline. But thanks for that. Make it cool from school. Okay, so that being said, in the following weeks, of course, we're going to be engaging experts when it comes to the field of agriculture. But today, let's just scratch the surface on this particular discussion. Now, today we do have a popular TED Talk for you. And in this particular TED Talk, we feature Lindsay Shute, who is the Executive Director and co-founder of the National Youth Farmers Coalition, which is a membership-based organization dedicated to the success of the next generation of sustainable farmers in the US. Now, in this 15-minute lecture, we may not really relate with the people or even the locations discussed in this video, but we can definitely relate with the underlying message, which is the more we care for the land, the more it is able to give back. And that farming definitely has money. Take a look.
My guess is that a lot of you in this room can think of someone in your family who farmed way back. The last person before I came along to farm in my family was this guy, my great-grandfather, Henry Clarkus Sheets. Henry farmed in the foothills of southeast Ohio, where he produced dairy, pork, tobacco, chickens, and every fall, he used his team of horses to haul apples for a guy named Old Man Burdett over Brothers Hill to Gallipolis, where those apples were floated down the Ohio River to Cincinnati. This is Henry, at the age of 90, running a track with suspenders. Henry worked hard, and he earned enough to own land, build a farm, build a house, and get 3 of his kids to college, my grandmother included. Those kids became a teacher, a principal, a gas station owner, a welder, but none of them farmed. That career path that Henry put his kids on so many years ago is the same one that 99% of us are still on today. For generations, farm families have been sending their children away from the farm, and for some good reasons. A dairy crisis, discrimination by the USDA against farmers of color, consolidation, vertical integration, skyrocketing land prices, and plummeting incomes. Life has been really tough for a lot of farm families, and opportunity outside of the farm has only grown. That's why today, there are 28 million fewer farmers in the United States than in 1920 when Henry was farming. And this is in a country with 200 million more people to feed. And because so many young people have left farming, farmers over the age of 65 now outnumber farmers under the age of 35 by a margin of 6 to 1. My husband and I are farmers. I'm 34, so I'm one of those ones. We, along with thousands of young people across this country, are bucking the trend by starting a farm operation of our own. These young farmers and ranchers represent an incredible opportunity for the future of food and farming in the United States. They are cultivating their crops by hand, and with tractors, this is an Alice Chalmers G, tractors that haven't seen the outside of a barn for 50 years. They are putting their chickens, pigs, cows, goats back on grass where they belong, and they are providing jobs and opportunity in parts of the United States that have not seen new industry in decades. They are also growing some amazing food. These young farmers are demonstrating, as have many generations before them, that the more a farmer can care for the land, the more that land gives back, and not just to a farmer and her family, but to an entire community. This is our farm, Hardy Roots Community Farm. It's about 100 miles north of this spot. We grow 25 acres of vegetables and produce eggs for a community-supported agriculture program. This CSA program feeds 900 households in the Hudson Valley and here in New York City. Each year, our farm grosses about $425,000, most of which goes to local job creation. We hire about 9 employees, some seasonally, some year-round, and they in turn take their paychecks and spend them on local goods and services. We source most of the inputs for our farm locally or regionally, and we use a very small percentage of our budget to pay for fossil fuels. Now, compare that with commodity corn, which actually makes sense as a comparison because it's what our farm was growing before we transitioned it to vegetables. 25 acres of corn is going to gross about $25,000. Half of that is going to be spent on fossil fuels, GMO seed, inputs, and only about $750 is going to be spent on labor. So, if Ben and I wanted to create the same benefits growing corn that we do growing vegetables, just in terms of jobs, we'll say, we would need to grow 5,000 acres of corn, which happens to be half of the size of our town of Claremont, New York. And that would be a terrible thing for Claremont, New York, because the more farmers you have maximizing the value of the land, the more benefits a community and a region can experience. As I said before, the more a farmer cares for the land, the more they're able to care for the land, the more that land gives back. What would our rural areas look like if we had 1 million more farms in this country, like the Salad Garden in Missouri, like the West Georgia Cooperative, like Three Springs Farm in Oaks, Oklahoma, like Kilpatrick Farm in Albany, New York, like Bucio Farm in Salinas, California, or like Salvie Island Organics outside of Portland. Just think of the health, economic, and environmental benefits that these farms would bring to our communities. We need more farmers. We need 1 million more farmers, but 1 million more farmers are not just going to come along. It is not 1920 when Grandpa Henry was farming. Land is crazy expensive. It took 10 years for my husband and I to figure out how to buy land in the Hudson Valley. Banks forgot how to loan to us. There is now something called a student loan, which takes hundreds of dollars from your bank account every month for decades. Supply chains are in shambles, and the federal government is writing policy to basically perpetuate what we already have. The structural environment that we as farmers are working in today is essentially the same that has been driving farmers out of business for decades. In response to the challenges that we as farmers were facing, I helped to co-found the National Young Farmers Coalition. We are a team of farmers and consumers that want to see at least 1 million more farmers in the United States. And we know that big change is necessary to make that happen. We are pushing for innovation in conservation easements to include affordability. We are reforming policy. And we are doing what we can to create a permanent home for independent, sustainable, diversified, and organic farmers in the United States. Last year, we did a survey of 1,000 farmers across the country. We asked them, what do you need? And they told us that their number one need is capital. Getting the money to start a farm is really tough. And of course, banks and private interests, I mean, they have a role, investors have a role to play in all of this. But history teaches us that getting money to farmers is way too important to leave to private interests alone. That's why the federal government, through the Farm Service Agency, makes very low-interest loans to farmers. And Republican President Theodore Roosevelt helped start the Farm Credit Cooperative in 1908. These institutions can do so much more to help the next generation of farmers get started. Take the Farm Service Agency. They're really stepping up. We worked with them to change their rules to make modern training programs, such as apprenticeships, help to qualify young people for one of their loans. We also advocated for microlending by the federal government to farmers. And guess what? They listened. They launched a new microlending program just this January. Super exciting, right? But these are administrative changes. These are things that the agency has been doing while Congress has been forgetting to pass a farm bill. They can only do so much. Actually, in the Farm Bill, Congress brilliantly wrote in there that this Farm Service Agency can only lend up to $300,000 to a farmer who wants to buy a farm, when many of us in this room probably realize that in a lot of regions, $300,000 is going to hardly buy you a house. And to top it all off, this agency, this is unbelievable to me, this agency has no permanent funding in the Farm Bill. So every year, they are at the mercy of the Appropriations Committee, and farmers are left to wait on loan decisions. If you want to buy a farm, and no one's going to lend to you except the Farm Service Agency, which is the case a lot of times because traditional lenders think farmers very risky, which, can be true. You have to go out and hope that you can find a farm for $300,000. Say you do. Then you have to go to the owner of that farm and you have to beg them to wade with you through months of bureaucracy while you apply for this loan and just hope that there's going to be a check on the other end. This is no way for our most important farm lender to have to operate. And it is no way for us to get this next generation of farmers started on land when we expect that 70% of all farmland is going to be changing hands in the next 20 years. They are more important than ever, and we have got to help them do their jobs and serve the next generation more effectively. Speaking of farmland, as you probably heard in the newspaper, is selling for many more times what a working farmer can afford. We need the land trust community to step up and work with government partners to create affordable farmland. So here in Manhattan on this island, you have affordable housing, so regular people can continue to live here. Well, in our rural communities, we need affordable farms, so farmers can continue to farm and own land. And in the Midwest, we've got to trade some of those subsidies that are growing mega farms for incentives to help young and beginning farmers get ground. They need that land. But the National Young Farmers Coalition, we are not waiting on Congress. As I said before, they forgot to pass the Farm Bill in October, and the extension that they passed in January, they actually decided, I don't know if Vice President Biden was aware of this, but he and his colleagues cut all training funding for beginning farmers. The Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program now has zero funding. we are rebuilding local farmer-to-farmer networks on the ground. We have coalitions of young farmers that are forming all over the country. Our Hudson Valley group that I am a part of, we get together to share a meal, put plastic on a greenhouse, and we are now using our combined purchasing power to bring down the cost of animal feed. So more of the farmers in our group can offer chickens, eggs, pigs. It's great. We can work together and solve a lot of these problems. We are now taking this farmer-to-farmer model and we're applying it to technology. We helped to launch a project called Farm Hack, which is farmers, programmers, engineers coming together to develop open source tools to help independent farmers stay competitive. You know, the National Young Farmers Coalition, we are getting a lot done, but there is so much more to do, and we cannot do it alone. You know, if every single farmer in the United States joined the National Young Farmers Coalition, which, by the way, we hope they do, they are all invited, we would still have less than 0.5% of the population behind us, which is very far from a supermajority, right? If we are going to rebuild American agriculture, provide a path of opportunity for people of modest means to become farmers in the United States, and for us all to feel the benefits and experience the benefits that all those farmers caring for the land will bring, then we need your help. We need you to figure out how we can get everyone in this country to buy local, to buy locally grown food and have the opportunity to do that. We need some of you to become farmers. Don't know if you're prepared for that. And we need all of you to put your kids on a career path that includes farming. And lastly, we need you to join with us to tell Congress that if we invest in the next generation of farmers in the United States, we will all win. I hope that you will join us. We need you to join us. Thank you.
From the National Young Farmers Coalition in the US. Guys, what did you think about that? Fantastic or not fantastic?
That was amazing.
She said a lot of things that most people didn't even like. It was very eye-opening. You know, it's not the kind of information that you consume daily. So she said a lot of things that got to me, but for me, two things stood out. She said that when they started the farming business, when they started analyzing how the government is handling the funds when it came to farming, she said that the least amount of money has been allocated to labor. So it makes it very difficult for them to hire people to do the work on farms. But at the same time, it's not such a bad thing because they are allocating money to technology. So now they can make equipment that can basically replace that human labor.
I like the fact that they also incorporated engineers to come up with the techniques.
The techniques
of making
no pun intended.
No pun intended. Of coming up with easier ways of just operating the farms, operational and less labor, incorporating less labor. Because when you have technology, you have less labor. And farming is labor intensive, as Hilda said. You need a lot of, if you were to use human labor for farming, you'd need so many people.
That's so true. It's going to be quite expensive. And I think also, you know, pointing out some of the things that, you know, they're currently exploring are the issue of, rather the idea of government funding, giving loans and funding young farmers. And I think we also do have that here, but, you know, I think we just need to be more proactive on it in terms of even trying to engage the government on what they can do for young farmers. Trainings is another thing. What are we doing on the ground to actually engage young people and tell them, okay, you know what, this is what it's all about. And like you said, we have to make it cool from school, because that's what Lindsay says. She's like, you know what, parents, please put your kids on that career path towards agriculture. So I think now...
And another thing that stood out for me is the fact that 28 million less farmers from 1902 to date, when they have 200 million more people to feed.
Yeah, that's the question. It's like, where do you think all this stuff is coming from?
And the ratio is
not
crazy.
Even like, that. She also said, on still supporting your point on how serious the situation is. She said that if they were to be able to produce enough corn for the community, they would have to cultivate half their town.
Can you imagine?
So you need methods.
There's a problem. Techniques. There's a problem. Like basically, we're not supplying enough for the demand.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We've got a text message here, guys, from John, who is in Mombasa, saying that he's absolutely loving the show. We can see there's one here from Veronica, tuned into Y254 from Kitale.
Kitale is the bread basket of the
and she's actually responding to the comment that I made earlier on. Would you rather stay in Nairobi or be in Kitale? And she's like, this is where it's at. Like what? Thank you so much for that. Of course, keep those text messages coming through that SMS number, which is 22162. We do appreciate your feedback. Let's keep this conversation going even on social media. But guys, even as we wrap up, the big question here is, how can we encourage more young people to join agriculture? All right, so we've given our ideas, but let's take a look at another video. Here are some great ideas from the year 2015 by stakeholders of the Crawford Fund Parliamentary Conference that took place in Australia. Have a look.
Right, now the question is, how do we encourage young people to be more passionate and to adopt agriculture as a career?
I believe that in order for us to address the deficit of young people coming into agriculture, we need to, one, give ownership to them.
First of all, make agriculture attractive. That means that you have to pay farmers a fair price.
Agriculture itself sort of seems to be a little bit of a negative term for many people. It sounds like, being out back and out in the farm.
Stop talking the sector down and start building a recognition that it's hugely important in economic and social terms and indeed one of the most important sectors of the Australian economy.
And two, young people have got very different and innovative ideas, and I think it's really very important for us as older people to accept those ideas and think about them without judgment.
Food security is such an important issue that I think today, with the young people, this is for the next generation and the generation to come, that the young professional need to have more passion in order to secure a food secure world.
So it's really important that we're empowering these people to be involved.
To ensure that there's enough food to feed every mouth that is going to come onto this planet in the future years.
Well, agriculture is a key and emerging industry for the world because everyone eats.
The only thing we should do is to open up, to give young people an opportunity, to also give them a hard time because it's not just for free, just to open doors.
We also have Skilling Young Entrepreneurs, which helps basically encourage young people to go back onto the land.
Invest in a rural economy because only if young people can find a job in a rural area, they will stay and try to build a family over there.
It's going to be one of those pioneer areas for young people.
The employment base in the food growing and processing and transportation industries in Australia is far larger than any other sector that I can think of.
Attracting young people by the idea of food and nutrition and health is one way to sort of wrap that up into an agricultural science initiative.
And if we can do that, we will encourage younger people to come back into agribusiness, which is the most important industry as far as I'm concerned globally.
Guys, I like what the points that have actually been brought up, man. Yeah. Everybody needs to eat.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so...
And I don't see how you can look down upon the sector. When after this, you're going to eat, right?
Yeah, but that's true.
Yes, everybody needs food. You can't dare look down upon the sector.
Actually, one of the speakers there had said that and one way in which they can encourage young farmers is recognizing
Yes.
them, like the ones who are doing well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's the way.
Exactly.
The same way we give Grammys to
Yes.
good
Musicians.
singers and rappers.
Drake, now Whiskey
Yes,
Wako.
The
the
person
same way we
with
give
the- yeah.
Oscars to amazing actors.
That's a really good idea, and we can
Recognize.
start right here.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think, and if you do have access to any young farmers out there, by the way, please share your ideas with us and even encourage us, even as the Y in the Morning family, to get in touch with you, because we would love to hear your story. Come and share with us and tell us what we might not even know, guys.
Let's recognize someone who is actually here in red.
Yes.
Have a farmer in studio.
Where's my award? My
Well,
farmers award of the year.
All right.
we need to get Chico a gift so that we can lead by example.
That's very true. Thank you, guys.
Chico will be our first nominee. We're looking for more nominees. You can't just win like
We
that.
should have rising farmers.
Oh my God. That is our cue to go and eat, okay? It's time for us to have breakfast, guys. But we want to say thank you so much for tuning into our Entrepreneurship Tuesday. We sure hope to catch you tomorrow bright and early, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on Y in the Morning. Shiko Kaitani is my name, saying have a nice day.
Yes, I go by the name of Barry Moses, or it's Barry Mo on every social media platform. And Hilda killed it today. Punchlines for days. Oh, Kalami Valo on every social media platform as well. Be sure to tune in to The Bounce this evening from 4 to 6. Kalami Val will be with you.
Yes, and I am Hilda Wadidi on every social media platform. Catch me here, same time, same place tomorrow.
Bye.